Hey guys, so prisons are institutions that no one wants to go to. They're terrifying and ruled by cruelty. But there are prisons that are so nightmarish that even the most hardened criminals want to avoid them. We'll try to look at these prisons from the inside and show you the scariest prisons that hold the most dangerous criminals. Bangkok Prison. The maximum security Bangkok Prison in Nonthaburi, Thailand, is in the top 10 worst prisons in the world. It's also famous around the world as the Bangkok Hilton from an Australian miniseries starring Nicole Kidman. This prison is sadly famous for being overcrowded and its hellish conditions. Death row inmates are held here, as well as inmates that are serving 25 years to life sentences. There are many foreigners among the prisoners in Bangkok. Generally, the majority of foreigners are in the prison because of drugs. The prison was built by the Chinese in the 1930s, and most of the rules implemented 100 years ago are still in play. The best example is the steel shackles on the inmates' legs. All prisoners wear them for the first 3 months, and death row inmates wear them the entire time. This rule was officially removed in 2013, but some of the prisoners still wear the heavy balls. Karenduru. Karenduru is a Brazilian prison. It's one of the largest in South America, and it's in Sao Paulo. The prison was called the harshest prison in the world. Only the people who've been in the prison know the nightmares within. There are about 10,000 prisoners there at one time. The evilest prison has a sad story. In 1992, there was a bloody uprising where 111 inmates died. The amount of deaths in Karenduru and the trial that lasted over 20 years caused a storm of anger among the population. In 2002, the prison was closed and demolished. All that remains is a single block as part of a museum. The former prison site was turned into a park. Kamiti. This maximum security prison is in Nairobi, Kenya. Originally, it was built to contain at most 1,400 prisoners. Nevertheless, it currently holds a shocking 3,600 people living in extremely harsh conditions. This prison has many political prisoners. The unfortunately famous G Block is the most brutal of them all, with frequent rape and violence. Additionally, people in that block live in inhumane conditions. The prisoners have to haul buckets of water every day because they don't have a reliable water source, which means maintaining basic cleanliness is impossible. Now, getting out of Kamiti alive is possible, however, not without serious psychological disorders. Sabaneta Prison, also known as Maracaibo Prison in Maracaibo, Venezuela. There's just one guard per 150 inmates. The prison was built for 15,000 people, but the Venezuelan government didn't have a problem putting 25,000 criminals in there. The conditions were disgusting. Cells were overflowing with prisoners, and thousands of people had to sleep in handmade hammocks. You'd feel like no one in the prison had ever even heard of hygiene. Diseases like cholera were incredibly common in Maracaibo Prison because of no sanitation. Corruption ran rampant. Wealthier prisoners bought guards so they'd have better conditions in the prison. They could buy larger cells or a filling dinner, while the poor prisoners had barely enough. In 1994, 2 competing gangs started a riot, which killed 108 prisoners. El Rodeo Prison is in Venezuela and is known for its brutality. The prison is overcrowded with twice the number of inmates as intended. Prison gangs set the rules, and their members join cartels once free. They join clans inside to resist the administration as well as other inmates. One of the most well-known events with the prison was a war between prison gangs on June 12, 2011. It resulted in the gangs taking over. Despite support from Venezuelan soldiers, they needed an entire month to restore order in the prison. The prisoners fired upon the soldiers with pistols, rifles, and even machine guns. After long negotiations, and not without help from the mafia, they were able to convince the gangs to restore power to the prison administration. Then, 830 instigators were transferred to other prisons in Venezuela, and 3 prison wardens were accused of corruption and arrested. Vladimir Central Prison. This famous prison has been in Vladimir, Russia since 1783, and it was originally used to hold the most dangerous prisoners, political prisoners, and repeat offenders. Since the Empress Catherine II ordered it built specifically for political prisoners, the tradition continued into the Soviet Union. It was home to enemies of the state, and people suspected of anti-Soviet thoughts. Interestingly, Central isn't just a name thought up by the prisoners. It's an official name for the Russian Empire's Central Prison. The minimum sentence in the prison is 10 years, but many prisoners have life sentences. Conditions in the prison are compared to Russian torture prisons. Inmates are often beaten daily both by guards and other prisoners, unfortunately. One prisoner wrote a letter asking for help with his own blood, but received nothing in response. The inmates that try to defend themselves are put in even worse conditions than those who do nothing. Guantanamo. The most famous U.S. prison for especially dangerous prisoners and terrorists is actually located in Cuba. In 1932, the lease for the land became limitless, and the cost was set at 2,000 pesos a year. The prison has been active since 2002 and has seen from 700 to a few thousand people in that time. Former prisoners confirm that they were treated like beasts. Interrogations lasted up to 12 hours, where they weren't allowed to visit the restroom, where deafeningly loud music was played, and where they were beaten horribly. Guantanamo is home to the so-called Camp X-Ray, a camp for Taliban POWs. The prisoners are kept in metal cages covered in a transparent plastic during rain. It's to break the soldiers morally and physically. Pelican Bay Prison. Pelican Bay is a supermax prison near Crescent City, California. The 275 prison is made for California's most dangerous prisoners. The prison was opened in 1989 in a separate wooded area far from large cities. Originally, it was designed for 2,550 prisoners. Since 2006, it has a population of 3,301 prisoners, and almost all of them are in maximum security. Prisoners are in solitary 22.5 hours a day and are only let into a covered courtyard 1 hour a day. It also has an X-shaped building where 1,300 of the most law-breaking criminals are held in complete solitude. The prison has had hunger strikes several times, and there have been claims of inhumane solitary confinement, but nothing has changed as of yet. Tadmor Prison. Located in Syria next to the ancient Palmyra Prison, Tadmor was destroyed by ISIL terrorists in 2015. Despite that, it may still hold the world record for torture and execution today. People inside Tadmor were poisoned, pumped full of drugs, dragged by their feet, tortured with dehydration and starvation, and killed every way imaginable. In June 1980, President Hafez al-Assad ordered to kill all the prisoners in retaliation for an attempt on his life by the Islamist Muslim Brotherhood. The executions lasted 2 weeks and killed from 800 to 2,400 prisoners. In 2001, the prison was closed, but it reopened in 2011. The conditions under Bashar al-Assad were no different than those under his father. But there were no more mass executions, for now. Muhanga. Formerly known as Gitarama, the central prison is in Muhanga, Rwanda. The prison is designed to hold no more than 500 prisoners, but at varying times, and according to different sources, has had from 6,000 to 8,000 prisoners. Several cells are brick rooms just 10 square feet large. These rooms have no ceiling, basic hygiene, or normal services. The small size means there's no beds, so people sleep standing or sitting. The lack of amenities and the overpopulation leads to a lack of sanitation, and therefore mass disease. The lack of a place to sit or lie down also leads to leg pain. The need to deal with basic human needs means they stand in excrement, which leads to infections and amputations. Rikers. Dirty, dangerous, depressing, and dismal. This is what Rikers prisoners say about it. It's the second largest penitentiary in the US that is known for its violence, and the system is actively supported by the prison's employees. Information about the violent treatment of its prisoners in Rikers has been published many times. Overseers beat prisoners, violated human rights, and condemned for sexual crimes. Over time, things only worsened, and the administration closed its eyes to the violations and inhumane conditions that were considered normal. Former prisoners say that the conditions in Rikers can't get any worse. There's no AC or heating, there are rats and mice everywhere, and there are tons of lice and cockroaches. Even now, it seems that getting the prison in order is impossible. Well, that's all for today. Leave a like, comment, let me know which of these you would definitely not want to get stuck in. And we'll see you again next time.